Okay, the KESS project I'm doing is related to Raynaud's disease and Raynaud phenomenon. It's a condition which affects about 10% of the UK and indeed people worldwide, particularly in northern climates, colder climates. It's a condition where you don't get enough blood perfusion to the soft tissues in the body, particularly the hands and the feet, most noticeably in the fingers and toes. There are a number of ways this condition can manifest, and it can be very mild, very, very severe. So the project came about because the company who got involved with us, they make medical garments and wanted to look at potential of making gloves for people with this condition. So it was a collaboration between Tonas Elast, the University of South Wales, and the initial part of the project was 1 year looking at sampling and testing materials to find materials suitable for making gloves, which are thin to maintain dexterity whilst at the same time retaining heat. So the first year was based on sampling from all around the world, researching different materials which have already been tested, analysing gloves already on the market, stripping them down, x-raying them, and then producing a report and working forward from there. We realised partway through the first year that it was not a one-year project, and in particular we realised that the heated gloves which are available on the market now, the heating elements are not specific to the patient or person's individual needs, so therefore they are very diffuse across the whole of the hand and require a big battery pack which prevents movement at the wrist. So they were a good idea but poorly designed. So we realised we needed more time spent on the project to design and get the gloves to the point where they are going to improve what is already out there. But also from a patient-centred approach, we needed to get people in with the condition and look at how their symptoms manifest after provocation using infrared thermography. So we managed to secure funding for 2 more years under KESS, which became a 3-year KESS PhD project. And rather than submitting for MRes, I submitted my thesis, which I had written as a transfer progress report, which was successful. So far we've done 2 human studies involving the traditional cold provocation method, where you place the hands in cold water and measure what happens, but also another provocation method using warmth to temporarily alleviate symptoms or watch how symptoms improve in different fingers of the hand, particularly in people who don't have Raynaud in every single finger, people who have one particularly troublesome area. By warming the hand, you can see that these areas didn't respond in the same way. So it was, the aim is to improve the methodology for diagnosis, be able to confirm the exact area which is most likely to need an intervention. And the gloves have actually been made now and are currently with people being tested over the winter. And there's 1 more human study to do in March, just a repeatability study, and then the thesis write-up. So yeah, that's my project. It's set out more in some areas and not what I expected to achieve in other areas. I really wanted to get to a point where we had heating elements and smaller batteries and maybe even capacitors and all these type of things in the glove by now, but it just wasn't possible. The bulk of my project has been spent finding the right materials to combine to create a thinner and warmer glove. Which has been successful. So from that side, yes, that has been successful. I think that we have done the patient-centred approach, so that was something which wasn't planned at first, but has now gone off on an exponential rate. And so there's an objective which we hadn't really written out in the initial plan, but it evolves as the project evolved. So I'd say more than it's met the objectives more than we expected in a lot of areas. And we have managed to get a secondary project going to work on the heating elements with different companies. So electronics specialists, techies and so forth. So even though I wanted to do it myself, another project evolved from it where it was more feasible for different companies, different experiences. So I'd say every objective has been met in a roundabout way. Yeah. The company have been involved from day one. For them, it's their first collaborative project with a university. So they've built a relationship with the university, and as such are involved in other projects now as well. My ideal situation would have for them to have had gloves to be starting to sell a year ago, even a year and a half ago. It just wasn't possible. Now that the gloves are being tested, and the company now knows where to get the materials from, how we now know how to make them. The company, at any point, based on the reports I've given them and the feedback next year from the first gloves and indeed the second gloves, which are being made as well, the company have got potential then to start producing these, selling them, and begin making a profit out of it eventually. And yeah, it's great for them because they have been involved in other projects now as well. I'd never worked with a company on this sort of scale before. I'd always been an employee working for somebody before coming to university, and then I was an undergraduate for 5 years. So to suddenly be in meetings with people who are CEOs of companies, who are profit-oriented, but yet really nice people, really enthusiastic. It was a very unusual experience for me. I was out of my comfort zone a lot at first. So what it has done is it's pushed me to interact with people. If I'm now in one of these meetings 2 years later, I won't just sit there and let everybody else talk and not say anything. I will make sure that I'm involved as well. I've had to be told to reel it in once when I was trying to say too much. And I think I've got quite a nice balance now. One part of the project involved me going over to the parent company in Latvia. So I was able to go over there, meet the owners of the company, and then also be given a tour around the site where all the materials are made. And I was able to see their capabilities. While I was there, I asked, could I have some prototypes made? I explained what I was trying to do. I took some materials over with me and said, could you make me a mitt? So I've got something that's got combinations of material. They didn't speak any English, so I was quite worried what was going to come back. And they came back with 4 prototypes 3 hours later, so they went away, made it, and then gave them to me. So that was a good experience. While I was there, they had another company owner from Sweden who was he wanted to sell their product in Sweden. And he was trying to ask what each product was. So he didn't speak, his English was good, but the person who was doing the demonstration, a lot of it was being lost, and I was working in a corner and I could see that they weren't really understanding each other. So I came over and said, do you mind if I just give some advice here? And got a notepad, pen and paper, and for every product I was drawing the human anatomy, where muscles attach, ligaments attach, and showing them what the benefit is and how it holds posture and how your gravity changes. And I was doing it all by drawings, and he understood everything. So it was like that was quite a good experience. I was able to put my undergraduate knowledge into their product. So they were very thankful for that, and asked me as my main work with them in the company, would I mind writing product specifications for all the products across the whole range in the company, because they were all written in Latvian, and when they translated, there were some horrible translations. A lot was lost, and I think they'd used Google Translate, and it hadn't worked in a lot of cases. For instance, one piece of maternity underwear was described as if you wear this, you prevent abortion. And a lot had been lost, so that was the main job I did for them over a few days earlier this year. So that was a good experience as well. So I'm coming away with a couple of new skills, and also the experience of working with people who are very high up in companies. So it's been very, very beneficial. I've learnt to sew. I got a sewing machine, which I'll show you later on my presentation. I learnt that I can't sew. One of my students, I said, I've got a sewing machine, and then asked me, would you mind restitching my jacket? I've got a hole in it. And so I said, yeah, no problem. She's not spoke to me since. I've learned skills with it's so broad, the skills I've picked up, to be honest. A big one is presenting. I never really enjoyed or liked presenting. I was very nervous to the point where as soon as I stood up I wanted it to be done as quickly as possible. And I've now presented in so many different places, it's becoming more and more natural, including recently being able to present and give lectures to people who don't speak English. So having to become very animated and explain using models again, which I think when I've been teaching for free the whole way through the KESS project, it's helping me grow to teach international students, which is a big thing on the course that I teach on. It's improved my statistics skills, my research methodology. I did a postgraduate certificate in research, which I should be awarded finally this week, which has taught me research methodology. So whereas before, when I started KESS, I was told this is a project, go away and write an idea what you're going to do with it. Now I know how to build a project from the ground up. So from the idea, selecting the best type of research to do, the best methodologies, so on and so forth. So that's another big skill which I didn't have before. Computer skills have improved, use of university computer systems, and also presenting a year's research in 3 minutes across 6 slides. That's quite a handy skill to have. Yeah. Oh, making conference posters as well. I'm not artistic at all, but I've now got it to the point where they're starting to look a bit better. The main benefit is the fact that it's now generated another project, and there probably will be future projects down the line as well. So this one was the first KESS project we had. A SERP project grew out of this, but then one of the companies who was involved in the SERP project said, oh, I've got another small project, I wouldn't mind getting going. We've now got a second KESS student in our research department. So as far as the company I work with, they're very happy to be involved in any future collaborative projects that we may decide to start to get going, whether on their own or whether part of a group. I think we're seven companies in the CERT project, but my company is the lead. So they're very happy in a lot of ways. I think they were quite shocked by how the university ordering system works. Not just here, I heard it's everywhere, to the point where he's very proactive. Right, I want this, we need this, on the phone, credit card, done, it's in the post. Whereas it took him a while to understand that we can't just necessarily do that we have to get things approved, get suppliers. So apart from him getting frustrated at things like that, he's very happy anyway. I've mainly tested heat and cold as my 2 main methodologies, and gloves. There is, of course, Raynaud's affects people just as often, if not more severely, in the feet as well. So some of the applications that we've made for Raynaud's and the gloves could be trialled in the feet. We have undergraduates who have now started doing some foot studies. We've also not really tested climate changes. So cold is fine, it's constant. Warmth is constant. We haven't tested wind, rain, and things like this. So I started trying to design some weather simulators, very, very basic Blue Peter style weather simulators. So that's another part of the project that could develop. I've used infrared thermography mainly. We could do similar projects and have a look at angiography, which would involve a more invasive approach, but using the same parameters, what's happening below the skin. And I recently met a rheumatologist who taught me how to do capillaroscopy. So there are other visual methods which could be applied in future projects as well. It's not a condition that's going to be resolved overnight. It's not a condition that is going to be cured in most cases. So a lot more research is needed, and the Raynaud's and Scleroderma Association do have a budget for research in the UK, which is quite extensive. So yeah, there are definitely a lot of potential for future projects. I didn't particularly ever envisage myself doing a PhD, to be honest. I was originally going to go straight into chiropractic, practicing as an associate. So my initial idea from quite an early stage in my undergraduate program was to try and do some research while I worked. And I think that if I had gone into practice, I would never have come back. I would never have done it. So now that I have, I don't want to waste that skill set. So I think that now it's going to benefit me in terms of I'm probably going to be looking towards a research assistantship, postdoctorate, and continuing within a university in the academic world. So this has given me a platform now to start looking towards that, and also starting to build my own research project ideas and looking towards securing funding for these ideas, working in a team. So after doing this project, that's probably where my career is going to go now. Ideally, I would like it still to be healthcare, chiropractic, and or physical manual therapy oriented. So that's my aim anyway. Because it was only a one-year project, I wanted to do as much as possible, and I did. In my first year, I spent more time out of the office at seminars and training days than I did anything else. So in-house, I immediately applied for everything. Every time an email came through about a new course starting, I applied for it. Like I said, I've come through it with my PG cert. I've been trained in skills to be a mentor, to use computer software at the university. The teaching is a big part of it in terms of my skill development. So teaching students has been a massive part of where I feel that the postgraduate skills development award has helped me, because if we didn't have that, I'm not too sure I would have looked at it and thought, right, what can I do to maximise my time here? So it was very helpful. KESS has also provided the in-house or University of South Wales presentation days for Pecha Kutcha competitions, as well as a national event, which I've took part in every time, both in-house and the national event. And also this year it was the first international doctoral school held in Sweden, and I was fortunate enough to get a place on that trip, which was brilliant. It showed me that, as I never really appreciated, that other universities do things in different ways, that the world does not end when I leave around my office, that I need to start looking, planning ahead for the future. So it's now pushed me more recently to start travelling and attending different universities to start thinking forward about how I could develop a project and also what capabilities other institutes have. So I'm looking very forward to continuing doing that over the next 7 or so months, and hopefully attending another grad school before I leave, if time permits, anyway. I was in my final year as a chiropractic student, and I had an employment opportunity with my brother, who's an established chiropractor back in my hometown in Wigan, and he was quite happy to take me on as soon as I graduated, even if just for the first 6 months, 12 months while I found somewhere else. It was a great job, great money, and I knew the area, so I knew what the living, everything was perfect about it. And then over the Easter break, I fell and broke my wrist, which meant I couldn't treat my patients it was looking like maybe 3 months. And you have a quota to meet before you're allowed to register as a chiropractor in the UK. I was also told I couldn't do my exams. I had to do them in the summer, so I wasn't going to graduate until the December of that year. So I rang my brother and explained to him, you need to find somebody else because this has happened. And so I was in limbo. I didn't really know what to do. In the meantime, I got a phone call the night before the exam started saying, oh, we've got somebody who will write your exams for you, which didn't leave me any time to revise for 4 years of work I'd done. And I managed to sit all the exams with a scribe over 3 days. And this position became available a couple of weeks later. And it was run by supervisor Pete McCarthy, who was my neurology and pharmacology lecturer on the chiropractic course. So I applied for more for interest. I wanted to find out what the project was about. Went to see him, and he said I might as well apply. He didn't have any worries about me not getting 2-1 at least in my degree, and I applied out of curiosity more than anything else. And it just sort of went from there. It wasn't a project I'd designed. It was already in place between Tonus and the university. I'd never heard of KESS, so I went online and had a read about what they were, about the budget setup, which was very, very attractive in terms of being able to buy equipment, as well as having a stipend and allowing me to do 6 hours teaching. So everything was really attractive. So by the time I got to my interview, I really wanted it. It wasn't about curiosity anymore. It was about, I really want to do this. And I thought, it's 1 year, and then I can go into practice and I can do my own research with a bit of experience and knowledge behind me. So that's how I ended up on a KESS project. Just completely bizarre sequence of events, really. Yes, make sure KESS 2 happened. Absolutely. I think when I speak to other research students, and some people are on collaborative projects and company-run projects, and I'm not saying that nobody else in the world gets a budget to play with, but I speak to some people, and the people doing KESS projects are so fortunate, not just the monetary side of it, but the fact that there are events and you're pushed, and the grad schools, and things like the International Grad School this year, there's only a handful of people who can say they've been on something like that who've done a research degree as well. So I think that we don't overborn sometimes, to be honest, and that's just my opinion anyway.